Welcome to part 15 of Rishi the Movie. The image above basically says it all, but I'll add an additional few slides to ram the message home and tease with a bit of Dr. Julio Williams' bio and a comment from one of his patients, I guess. I think Williams should stick to what he knows best, and that is getting down on bended knee before the psychopath that runs his cult criminal racketeering gang and just keep lying for her, sending out threatening emails to victims of crimes at her hand, and funding terrorism, racketeering, and several murders. That's about it, but there's so much more to show you. Up on the screen now, some images of crimes committed by Patton West. Obviously, the latest crimes committed by her occurred in Arizona, where she moved to in 2010 after being basically forced to leave Montana, as she'd been forced to leave New Mexico in 1995. Now, on the screen now is a copy of Williams' bio as posted on Patton West's website in 2007. And here we go with the first lie: a gifted cardiothoracic surgeon. Clearly not everybody agrees with that analysis, as on the screen now is a comment from one of his patients. On the screen now is a magnified part of Williams's garbage about himself and Soraya Ma. Let's go down to where the red arrow is. This is Williams. I mean, Patton West may have written it for him and just posted it, but Williams' name's on it. Here we go. She's a modern-day pioneer and visionary who lives her life as an example in service for the greater good of humanity. It was as if I had been ignited to see and know and experience all new levels of possibility. And as a physician, I felt privileged to receive the gold that her teachings have to offer, and I have been inspired to pass on to society at large the tools that have empowered me to engage the philanthropic spirit in service to humanity, and moreover into my medical practice. She's a master healer because she is a master soul. Her very presence is a healing presence. Because she heals from a greatness of heart, she has opened my sight to my own greater capabilities as a human being. I am delighted and honored to further her work in all ways possible and for the opportunity to serve as a board member of the Global Guardianship Initiative, and look forward to becoming a dynamic force in the implementation of the different projects on a long-term basis. Well, like all the other projects Patton West thinks up, they never amount to anything, but all the money that's donated for these projects just disappears into a bank account to fund her luxurious, delusional lifestyle. Now, prior to just reading the image above, I have posted some of Patton West's convictions, mainly fraud-related convictions, and a conviction for assault on Dr. Cole. But that is the tip of the iceberg, and you'll understand that if you go to one of our websites and read the written statements given by past employees and students, and listen to the audio statements. That's really harrowing. Some of them are really harrowing. Now, getting back to Julio Williams, yes, Julio Williams has assisted her greatly in her great work. The great work has nothing to do with altruism. It has nothing to do with world service. It has nothing to do with raising one's vibrations. Basically, this is a dangerous psychopath probably criminally insane, masquerading as a guru. And I'd advise you to maybe just rewind back to the beginning and go slowly through some of her great works that Julio Williams has funded. I'm talking about terrorism and racketeering. I am talking about his role as chief cheerleader, and there's much more to come on that subject. And I am talking about the email he sent me in January 2007, basically threatening me that if I didn't pull out of my lawsuit, he would fuck with me, or whatever it was he said in there. And at the same time, he told me that he was pledging $2 million to fund Patton West's lawsuits against me and other victims who were trying to get justice for crimes committed against them. So up on the screen now is an image which basically depicts Patton West's business model. Spiritual seekers, sheeple, buy into her bullshit and lies, and over a period of time, they're basically converted into cash and energy. In other words, slaves working for her for little or no pay. The image features all the artwork and valuables valued at $4 million in 2002 that Patton West either acquired as gifts or bought those things with the cash that was being donated for the big Save the Planet schemes that she invents one after the other. I was caught up in one in 2002, how to bring more altruistic banking to the world. Again, it was just a track for me to run on while she tried to extract wealth from me, which was never going to happen. So now let's look at another way Patton West acquires wealth. And this is absolutely terrible and speaks volumes about how evil this woman is and how idiots like Williams just go along with the crimes, because in Williams' case, like Cole, they're both brainwashed and conditioned. They're not much better than droids. On the screen now is page 1 of a 3-page email I received from Rebecca West in March 2007. I'm going to read the first paragraph to you because this is Patton West's business model. This isn't an accident, this is intentional. Here we go. After more than 30 employees coming and going, 16 just since I started on May 1st, 2006, not counting myself, current employees or contract labour. There are currently 3 employees remaining. 2 of the 3 are very much in control due to fear and or ignorance and have proven to me I cannot trust them. I have been trying to get the money she owes me before I end my contact with her, specifically a missing paycheck, overtime, overdraft charges, and wishful thinking, the bonus she promised me for the hundreds of hours of overtime I incurred. She sent her intimidating demand of me through her finance controller, that would be Jeffrey Reynolds, last evening, and I have until 5 p.m. today to talk to her. I must return and either give a 2-week notice and or plan to be demoted from office manager to some other lowly position. Seen from historical accounting, I would end up becoming her personal care assistant. This is Patton West's business model. By this time, Reynolds had gone full-on rogue after he had loaned Patton West $300,000. And the only way he was ever going to get that money back was basically to become her tool, which he did. Ditto Julio Williams. If you read pages 2 and 3 of Rebecca West's email up on the screen now, you'll see that he gave Patton West $100,000 sometime in early 2007. In fact, Williams pledged $2 million to Patton West so that she could fund her legal costs against all the victims like me who were trying to get justice for the crimes committed against us. She puts propaganda up on the website about jobs that are available in wonderful Montana, knowing that people will come from all over the US, having burnt their bridges either with their relatives or their previous employer, and arrive in Montana expecting to receive and enjoy the kind of employment advertised on her website. On day one, they arrive, and many of them are told there was a misunderstanding, and they take a 20% pay cut on day one. In my own case, as a consultant, I never got paid for the first month, and when I inquired why that was, I was told I was doing saver for the master teacher. In other words, it's saving her from parting with her money for the employees or business consultants that she hired and promised XYZ. As soon as they arrive, of course, that's all out of the window. What follows are a number of images taken from our website advertising these positions that were available, but they weren't available. If you actually read the rest of Rebecca West's email to me, the other 2 pages as well as the first page, you'll see that Patton West is heavily in debt. She's robbing Peter to pay Paul. She has a lien against her for unpaid employment insurances, but she keeps putting these adverts up for new employees because a percentage of them will come in. Many will leave shortly, but some will stay, and they are the lifeblood, either by fundraising or not paying their wages. If you watch these videos, you'll see what's going on. And then there are images from guess who? Julio Williams advertising the jobs. He knew what was going on from day one, but because he could sit at her top table and have lunch with her every now and again, and she'd blow sunshine up his ass, he thought it was a wonderful thing, regardless of the illegality of what was happening. Morally and legally, she was breaking just about every law under the sun, and that was okay with Williams, even when fellow physician Dr. Cole had the crap beaten out of her so Patton West could get all of her money. So let's move on to a crime that Williams was definitely involved with, and that is probably fraud or, in some cases, extortion. Now, if you've come this far in the movie and you've gone to our documents library or audio recordings library and looked at the newspaper articles and seen all the crimes that she's committed in Montana and Arizona, we'll do more on Arizona shortly, you'll see that this woman is a career criminal. There's no doubt about it. The evidence is overwhelming. And she manipulates, takes control of people, brainwashes and conditions them, and then just uses them. And in most cases, these individuals, once they fall under a spell, do things and say things that they maybe would not normally do. And obviously, I'm referring to Julio Williams. So let's just build up the timeline a little. On the screen now is the first page of the Whitefish Pilot newspaper, and that was published in July 2007. It was actually published on the same day that Patton West was in court doing her child custody, brainwashing, all of that for her son, Chris Haywood. We've talked about that, so I won't go into it again. Anyway, one of the comments she made was that she also claims her gifts, this is Patton West, obviously the reporters interviewed her, she also claims her gifts can heal people with various illnesses, including leukemia, and she plans to teach what she knows to cardiologists and other physicians when her plan for building spa unfolds. Well, her plan for the building spa didn't unfold because the application for grants was totally fraudulent. And simple checkups would have brought that to light anyway. But Reynolds, obviously, probably the guy behind doing all the work, the money man, applying for the grants and that. If not, sorry, Jeff. But anyway, a spa development didn't happen. Another big get-rich-quick scheme that fell apart at the seams. Now, the only physician cardiologist she had at the time was Dr. Julio Williams. If you remember, Dr. Cole had the crap beaten out of her by West in spring of 2006. I believe she kind of disappeared after Patton West took all of her money and forced Cole to sign her home over to Patton West. So we're back with Julio Williams, who was the only cardiologist present and remained present until 2021. Now just think about this for a minute. Williams comes on board in the year 2000 and is rewarded by the master manipulator, Devra Patton West, then calling herself Soraya Ma, up until about January 2004, when her charity was struck off for fraud. She was Devra G. When she got kicked out of Montana in 2010, she suddenly became Rishi Devra. Anyway, the truth is absolute. Be informed, do not be misled. John Watson has spent the past 2 years obsessed with conducting a vile attack on master teacher Devra West in misguided attempt to extort money from her, damage her reputation and manipulate the legal system. Of course, if you've been a student of Patton West, you'll know it's her doing all of those things. She tried to extort money or defraud me out of money, and I guess succeeded to this point, but that's about to change when she goes to jail. Damage her reputation, okay, I'll put all the crimes up again that she's committed. I've never committed any crimes. The only time I've been to court is to do with Patton West when I served her for fraud and won that lawsuit in 2008. So, you know, I'm not going to read all this bullshit out. It's a waste of time. Okay, bottom of page 2, John Watson attacks Reverend West and her church, Sacred Archives Institute, completely redefining it to fit a corporate ideology wherein shareholders invest for personal gain. Now, I've already proven that that was her idea, not my idea, and other witnesses have confirmed that. It goes on to say, when in fact any and all donations are allocated to further the mission statement of the organisation. I don't care what the mission statement of the organisation is. It's lies. It is using religious freedom laws to the nth degree. And none of the donations ended up funding the great get rich, save the planet scheme she intended. It all goes into her pocket. She buys artwork and valuables, offshores some of the money, buys jewels, precious metals, and so on. That's it. That's the mission statement, Devra West. Top of page 3, she donated her entire wherewithal of personal resources for over 12 years to humanitarian efforts worldwide. Where's the proof that any of this has happened? It hasn't. I was her business manager for 6 months from January 2002 to August 2002. There were no accounts done. One of the things that led to my dismissal, if I can put it that way, was that I realized that she was operating completely out of the law, state, federal, IRS, the whole 9 yards. And I attempted to turn her organization into something that would be seen by wealthy donors as worthwhile investing in. And the first thing they will ask for, I'm a businessman, is the accounts. unless you have 4 or 5 or 6 years accounts showing that your business is run on a proper basis and the donations are going to be safely used for the purpose they were asked for, no large donors will get involved. Patton West declined to take my advice. She constructively dismissed me. I wrote to the Secretary of State for Montana, and her charity was struck off. Now, before her school was struck off with the charity, it was called the Sacred Archives Institute. A month later, it suddenly became the Sacred Arts Institute. She didn't miss a beat. I mean, this is the whole point of her operating in the Wild West. There are no, basically, laws out there, or very few, unless you rob a gas station and they'll chase you with guns blazing. But if you murder people, if you're a terrorist for decades, if you're obviously into racketeering disguised as a world server, they don't seem to notice any of that. Read what the employees say. Read what the students say. Look at her crimes. You know, this was written in 2005 in response to me launching a lawsuit against Patton West. She lines up 3 of her droids. They happen to be 3 physicians, which she'd managed to manipulate into joining that scheme. Dr. Cornell pulled out more or less immediately, woke up and realized what she was doing. Dr. Cole was basically put through the mincer, beaten many times, and her entire net worth and her home taken away from her. And Williams stayed around as president of the Global Guardianship and president of her latest front company for organized crime that she used in Arizona, and that is up on the screen now. Page 4, more of the same. It's all lies. It's all lies. I mean, if you believe this bullshit, then you believe that she's holding open the gates of time and the Christ gave her 2 doctorates in person. Now, somewhere in this letter, and I can't be bothered to go look for it, it describes me as being mentally ill and sick when obviously there's virtually 0 evidence of that, but plenty of evidence that Patton West is basically criminally insane. Now on page 6 of 6, these idiots all signed that. I mean, they didn't get a pen and sign it. It was posted on Patton West's website with their names down the bottom. Now, whether they wrote the stuff or not is yet to be decided. In Williams' case, he certainly agreed with it. Okay, what I'm trying to say is that Williams is basically a droid of Patton West. He does exactly what she says. He donates regularly. And when I, having been defrauded, launched a lawsuit against Patton West, he does another unthinkable thing, given that he made a statement in 2005, which was clearly defamatory and will be, looking back now, will be seen to be so. Williams, on behalf of Patton West, sends me the letter basically threatening me unless I pull out of my lawsuit and pledging $2 million to cover her legal fees so she could defend herself against me and all the other victims she screwed. Now let's fast forward to when Williams moved down to Arizona with Patton West from Montana. Around, 2014 time, maybe a year or 2 either side, Patton West posts the following on her Facebook pages. You can pause the screen and read the detail, but what I want to get down to is point 3, the red point 3. As an instrument of mercy, she offers the phenomenon of divine grace healing for the regenerative transformation of body, mind, and soul, and the karmic resolution of divine dispensation. What a load of gobbledygook bullshit. look, the whole image is entitled Rishi, Regent of the Great Masters. The woman is criminally insane. There is no evidence she's a spiritual master at all. She can't deliver enlightenment to anybody. You can't buy consciousness. Consciousness is something the individual works on themselves. And yet, under religious freedom laws, she's allowed to get away with statements like this, even though there are 3.5 decades of proof that she's a career criminal, then that she's been racketeering for 35 years, aided and abetted by droids like Cole, Williams, Coffin, and maybe the odd corrupt person like Reynolds who dips in, announces a few murders, does some other serious crimes, and then disappears. Going back to point 3, she can't say that she's selling miracle cures for cancer, so she calls them divine grace healings instead. But we all know what she means. Now, there is zero evidence from anybody I've spoken to that she's actually healed anybody. But there's a mountain of evidence to show that she's harmed scores or hundreds of victims. I'm not just talking about the alleged, the suspicious, convenient deaths around her for people who go public or look like they're going to go public. I'm not talking about the long, long list of crimes. I'm talking about the weapon that underpins her criminal career, and that is terrorism. Now, it comes in a different form than blowing people up or shooting them out in the street, but it's the same thing because she's using violence and force to intimidate, coerce people into doing things they would not normally do. And Williams knows that because he's been a 21-year student of hers at her unaccredited school for occult studies, Hogwarts, if you like. So, that's what she teaches. That's what she does to her victims. Williams has been paying a fortune to learn how to do it himself. And as a physician, you would have thought, do no harm, that Hippocratic oath or whatever it is they're supposed to sign. Now, like Coffin, Williams got pulled away and basically become slaves of Patton West. So the Hippocratic Oath is a distant second place to doing whatever Patton West wants him to do, however immoral or illegal. And the same with Coffin. She doesn't seem to be able to resist handing over money when it's required, when there's slim pickings from theft, fraud, extortion, and embezzlement. Now let's have a look at the top of that paragraph 3. A conveyor of the holiness of spiritual initiation, she bestows the supreme light of the divine endowments and has written a treatise of sacred knowledge on the mysteries of the celestial initiations of the universal spiritual hierarchy. God, that woman is verbose. She's developed a spiritual gobbledygook that she spews out effortlessly, as she does when she's talking to the masters in her head that always seem to agree with her, however awful her crimes and the way she treats other people. Obviously, she's talking to a different set of masters, the ones that are in the lower astral. Now, as an example of one of her spiritual initiations, I thoroughly recommend everybody read B. Schofield's article. She interviewed Patton West and lots of her victims and basically came up with a huge mountain of evidence of people being abused, defrauded. It's all about money. I mean, this is why we use the mincer as her business model. Everybody goes in, and this time it is the turn of Lolita Jordan. And first of all, Patton West does what she always does with couples, and that she separates the wife from the husband, destroys relationships. Then she basically turns the wife into a brainwashed droid, which apparently has happened to Lolita. But there is a video up on our website of Patton West giving this initiation. I might put it in, depends how much space we have. Anyway, the point in sharing B. Schofield's wonderful article again, and by the way, she's a serious journalist. She's been published by the New York Times, and she specializes on cults. And make no mistake about it, this article shows Patton West is running a cult. Basically, personality cult, but it's all about sucking up money and resources, human energy from the sheeple, basically. So having advertised herself on social media as being able to deliver miracle cures for cancer, which you can't call it that, of course, it's got to be divine grace healings, then it's just a case of setting up the sting. The sting being to identify wealthy people that come to her personal sessions, private sessions, whatever she calls them. She identifies who's wealthy. Now, like I said, I've never known anybody tell me that she's healed anything. But the opposite, plenty of evidence that has occurred. So she sets up the venue for basically extortion and uses Julio Williams' home. The headline is Sacred Sundays with Rishi. As you've come this far, you know there's nothing sacred about this awful excuse for a human being. So imagine somebody that she's identified as wealthy. She's desperate for money, she always is. So what she does is target them. If they're not ill, she makes them ill, and then she sells them the cure. That's it. I mean, I could talk for ages about this, and I've already mentioned and given a link to two of her employees talking about the 500K she got in I think it was 2003 for, I guess, a fake healing. I don't know. I don't think the IRS ever ended up with a statement as to how she got it, why she got it, and where it went. So we have massive evidence that Patton West, over the past 35 years, is a cruel, vicious, spiteful psychopath, quite possibly criminally insane, and responsible, I guess, according to Jack West Reynolds, maybe 5 to 7 murders, 35 years of racketeering in 3 western states, New Mexico, Montana, Arizona, and thousands of acts of terrorism. If you get nothing else from these videos, understand that her wealth and all this bullshit she spews out is all predicated and supported by her ability to silence people if they tell the truth. So here's the question. It's obvious that Williams is a brainwashed and conditioned droid. That's why he signed up for a 2005 statement posted on Patton West's website, basically designed to diss me. And how did that turn out for him? In 2007, he wrote me that letter, basically threatened me if I didn't pull out of the lawsuit against his cult gang leader. And then we have him providing his home for Sacred Sundays with Rishi. The question I ask you is, given the amount of information about Patton West's crimes and the duration of Williams' relationship with her from 2021 to at least, from 2000 to 2021, do you think he knew what was going on? Do you think he willingly participated in fraud, extortion, racketeering? That's basically the big question. review the evidence and see what you think. There's more to come. The next thing that Williams did, which again is totally idiotic, is to basically portray the result Patton West and Reynolds bought using Williams' money as not as outspending me in court and getting a defamation result. Basically, Williams portrayed the whole thing as a judge investigating cyber extortion scams against Rishi Devra. Again, she posts this stuff out in the Wild West, that includes Arizona, and nobody bats an eyelid. There is no contempt of court. There's just nothing, and it's all lies. So we'll finish off the video by going into Williams's contribution
to
Williams's piece de resistance,
one of the biggest lies ever told by him, or at least his name was at the bottom and it was attributed to him, and that is their interpretation of the court orders. Before moving on to that, I want to go to another crime that was highlighted by the Whitefish pilot that Williams was obviously involved with. On the screen now is an excerpt from that article, and that refers to a third lakeside property. That is 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the 5th paragraph down. I'll read it. A third lakeside property, the well-known Osprey House on Angel Point, owned by Robert and Tabby Ivy, is promoted in the Soraya Mar Enterprises brochure as the Soraya Devi VIP Retreat Spa. Tabby Ivy refutes the claim. Devra consistently misrepresents her involvement with our house, erroneously saying she has an offer on it, but we have had no formal offer nor accepted any offer from her, she said. After I saw our house in her brochure, I walked into her office and said, I don't want my house on any of your marketing materials. For 2 years, she claimed she was going to buy our home. She wrote a bad check for several $1 million to the realtor, and that was our experience with her. And then it goes on to talk about Millennium Mind and my own lawsuit against her. And now you're up to date as to how that went. So what follows now on the screen are screen captures basically from Patton West's then website that was up around 2007 in Montana, when she was based in Montana. These are images which are obviously intended to portray to the public a massive lie. We know the woman was close to bankruptcy, although when in court in 2007, she had a multi-billion-dollar business. 2009, she was $2 million in debt. Anyway, it goes up and down. I can't follow it all the time. But the point is, this was obviously part of a massive fraud, using somebody else's property and portraying it as her own was at the very least a lure to wealthy donors who might have believed this garbage. I'm sure many of them did. And at the end of the stream of pictures is Julio Williams again, up on the website at the same time, so he knew about the deception, was happy with it. Now, at that time, I believe that Williams was a director of the Global Guardianship Institute. That's easy to verify. If I come across a document confirming it, I'll put it up, but I did remember seeing it somewhere. And we saw how impressed he was with Soraya Mar, as she was calling herself then. And in addition to that, coming up is the email that Rebecca West sent me in March 2007. And if you look top of page 2,
you'll see that Julio Williams has just thrown $100,000 so that Patton West can continue to fund her criminal activities in Montana. Before getting into Williams's probably biggest lie, I want to just talk about my trajectory, if you like, what happened from A to B that led me from where I was to where I am now. I basically joined a meditation group in 2001, late, probably October, November, and was recruited by Patton West to be a business manager on some grand project, which at the time I didn't realize was totally a ruse. It was never meant to come to fruition. It was just a way of keeping me involved for 6 months so she could try and convert me into one of her brainless droids, which was never going to happen. Now, when I approached her about some of the financial crimes that were being committed there, she came to the realization that I couldn't be corrupted. I was dismissed without pay and shares as promised, and that led to my lawsuit, which I launched in 2003. You have heard excerpts from the recording I had with Patton West, where she admits defrauding me, would agree to all of it in court if she went there, but she doesn't see herself writing out a check for what she owes me. So that's how I got from where I was to where I am now. And unfortunately, after defrauding me, she went on to do it in Arizona for 15 years, from 2010 to present day, I guess. So in spite of all the obstacles put in front of me, defamation, threats, one murder attempt before the outcome, and terrorism, which started December 2006. In spite of all of that, I won my lawsuit. And the above newspaper article confirms that. And following the newspaper article are basically copies of the judgment that I received, which was somewhere north of $700,000 back in 2007. Now, as explained previously, Patton West rarely defends civil lawsuits brought against her. Why would she waste money when 95% of her victims she can stop dead in their tracks using terrorism, basically? That's the long and the short of it. I must have been a huge disappointment to her because I won my lawsuit, and then, of course, she appealed. But before that, after my win was announced in the newspapers, straight away up on her website was her denial that I had won the lawsuit, and basically portraying her crimes onto me. And at the same time, a dozen or so statements appeared on her website from her employees and students. Now, is this normal? I mean, if you're employed in a company and the CEO robs a bank, do you start post? No, it's a cult. It's a criminal gang. It's a cult. She appealed knowing she had unlimited funds from Williams, for instance, and Coffin, particularly Williams in this instance, because he wrote me a letter in January 2007 saying he was pledging $2 million to fund her legal costs against me and presumably all the other victims trying to get justice. Then Patton West turns to Jeffrey Reynolds, somebody we refer to as scum in the UK. Somebody would sell their wife and children if the price was right, and Reynolds doesn't know it, but in a way he's done that because he's going to jail, there's no doubt about that. Long story short, Reynolds agrees to take a copy of Patton West pleadings, which were also lies. I was telling the truth. She was the one defaming me, and there's going to be a lot of evidence to show that that was the case. So, as explained, Reynolds takes a copy of Patton West's pleadings and presents it to the court as his own. He maintains in those pleadings that I defamed him between 2002 and 2006, and yet the facts are that Reynolds did not join Patton West's employ until 2006, and because he had moved from California to Montana, it was likely that they didn't have a prior relationship. So it's just a pack of lies, perjury. So they both appeal. I don't turn up because I left the US in 2005 and moved to Canada thinking I'd be safe from violence up there. That turned out not to be the case. Anyway, having spent several years and a lot of money winning the lawsuit, I couldn't afford basically to fly backwards and forwards and fund more lawyers' fees and not be certain of the outcome. Which turned out to probably be a good idea because for some reason it turned out to be a mistrial because evidence that was presented to the judge by my lawyer, he refused to look at. I wonder why. Something for the FBI perhaps to look into. So Patton West got summary judgment in the amount of $5 million. Reynolds got $5 million as well. And I heard that shortly afterwards, he signed over the judgment to Jack West. I don't know whether that's true or not, but again, this is a crime family. So in 2010, I was deposed by Patton West's lawyer. And then we had the shenanigans of the planetary regent and her toad turning up and pounding on the keys constantly, just feet in front of me, while I'm being asked questions by their lawyer, or Patton West's lawyer. Then, as somebody astutely posted on somebody else's website, Patton West portrays her win in court as some kind of huge victory when all she did, basically, after being defeated in court by me on the fraud lawsuit I brought against her, just used funds from her cult and stooge Reynolds to basically buy the law she wanted. And that's what criminals do. If they can't intimidate you or murder you, they buy the law they want. First, we come to one of the many postings Patton West made online on her website and elsewhere. But the first part of this 3-page posting are comments that were made on one of my websites about Patton West lies. Now we move to images taken from Patton West's website. You know, there she is wearing the king-size bed sheet, the roll of curtain material over her right shoulder, holding a bunch of flowers. It's all staged. And she presents the verdict not as just buying the law she wanted because I didn't turn up, not even relating to defamation. It's all presented as a cyber scam investigation that a judge is making, and I'm one of the perpetrators of it. That's what she's trying to say. And again, this is what she does. She portrays all of her crimes on her victims. She's used the web ever since it became available to advertise her wares, which is the promise of enlightenment for endless amounts of money, and all anybody gets is grief, theft, fraud, extortion, violent assaults, threats of murder, actual murder, and 35 years of terrorism against scores of victims. And now we came to the statement that Williams posted. Again, doubtless this was written by Patton West. Judge exposes cyber extortion scam against Rishi Devra. I got to laugh because it is so outrageous, but she's gotten away with it for decades and decades and decades. again, hindsight is wonderful because now in 2026 we can look back and see that this was all lies, all of it. And then she went on to do the same in Arizona, and we'll get to that eventually. But for now, I just want to ram it home that Julio Williams is probably the most well-trained pet, or was until he put some distance between him and her after Patton West defrauded the US government out of COVID SBA disaster loans, 150,000 or 500,000. I've heard a number of figures, but apparently it did happen. So to end this video, I just want to give you yet another example of how Williams was just totally under Patton West's control. And on the screen now are excerpts from Patton West's circa 2007 website with excerpts of bios of both Williams and Dr. Cole. Now, these were both physicians, they were both in a cult, and yet when Patton West beat the crap out of Dr. Cole whilst extorting her entire net worth from Cole, Williams did nothing, even though he knew exactly what was going on. And it was a fellow physician, you know, a Hippocratic oath, do no harm. I don't think it meant look the other way either. Anyway, on the screen now, we have part of the statement that Williams made back in 2005, which is, I, Julio Williams MD, have been a long-time student of Soraya Ma, and I stake my honor and credibility on defending her personal integrity and establishing the truth. Now, that statement was made in 2005. Cole was viciously assaulted in the spring of 2006. Patton West is convicted of it in 2008, and it goes on with all the other crimes. And Williams was still on board, donating money, spewing out idiotic testimonials that Patton West is some kind of angel come down to guide humanity, all of that until 2021. Anyway, I'm getting a little off the point here. The point I'm trying to make is that Patton West is probably criminally insane. After beating up Dr. Cole, there was uproar, or a lot of upset inside the Cole. So Patton West issued the following statement. And, you know, basically she talks to the voices in her head, which she calls the masters. And if there are actually entities outside her head talking to her, they're in the very low astral plane. Because having beaten the crap out of Cole to get her money, she then goes to these fictitious masters and asks for them to give their opinion about her own actions. Not surprisingly, they basically agree that the beating to Dr. Cole was long overdue, partly because she was a Nazi in the World War II death camps in another lifetime. You've got to read this stuff that this lunatic spews out. The point I make here is that the statement you're seeing on the screen now, Patton West talking to the masters in her head, was made shortly after the assault on Cole. Williams was present long before the assault started on Cole. He was present during the assaults on Cole, maybe not physically present, but he would be aware of what was going on. And then he would have read the statement that's up on the screen now because it was circulated to every member in the cult in an attempt to calm them down. So there we are. Maybe Williams believed it all or didn't believe it and was just corrupt and looked the other way. Anyway, Williams stayed on until 2021.